What's up, YouTube? Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, my name is Troy. I'm a former fat guy sharing my story with the hope that it might help someone else. If it helps one person, it was worth it. What I ask is if you support me in doing that, take a second to smash that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a thing, but it means the world to me. So, in this video, we're going to talk about how to put your body transformation on easy mode. Because right now, it's possible you have it on hard mode, and things are moving so fast that you don't know what the heck's going on and you're getting slaughtered out there. So, the idea is we're going to employ mindfulness, right? We're going to start paying attention to what we're doing, and the invitation would be to pay attention to these 6 questions you can ask yourself. And the questions are very simple. They're around who, what, when, where, how, and why. And, those questions are really, they're based around sort of like what you are putting in the hole in your face, what you're eating. It's your diet, stupid, right? If you're struggling on your journey, whatever it may be, or maybe even if you're not struggling, you're just getting started. You come across this channel trying to find out how to build some muscle, lose some body fat. And the secret to doing that lies in your diet. And if you haven't been living under a rock, you probably know that. But maybe you're struggling a little bit. And it's entirely possible, because here's the thing. Imagine breathing, right? Think about breathing. It's something that you control, right? If I asked you to hold your breath, you'd be able to do that right now. But is it something that you think about all the time? I would say no, right? You're not thinking about breathing when you're sleeping or when you're, focused on other stuff. And so I think eating is kind of like that, right? Because I feel like sometimes we're eating things and not even thinking about it because we're doing it on autopilot. So it's almost like we're running a program, and we can change that program. So that's what this is about. Before you eat the thing, ask yourself one of these 6 questions, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what's working well for you in the comments, but let's kick it off, guys. Number 1, the question is who? And, it's not, and it could be like, who's feeding you, right? It's not who you're eating. That would be kind of weird or, interesting, but doesn't apply here. Who is feeding you? That might be one, or even better and more specific, really what I wanted to get at is whose responsibility is it what ends up in your body via your mouth, right? Whose responsibility is it at the end of the day? Because surprisingly, when I first started health coaching, I noticed that conversations would oftentimes involve relationships. And so when you speak to people about nutrition, you're going to get people that will say like, oh, well, I get this XYZ for my kids, and then I end up eating it. Or my husband always wants to do takeout all the time, and I end up being sabotaged because I eat the takeout. Or my wife does the grocery shopping, and she buys XYZ. And those are all very valid environmental reasons and sort of like challenges for people. Environment is big, and your support network is huge, and your relationships are so important. But back to the question of who and whose responsibility is it? What goes in your face? What's the answer to that question? What's the answer to that question, right? Tell me right now. Tell yourself, what's the answer to that question? You're responsible. And so when people come to me with this, I get this for my kids, and then you eat it, and then it's your fault because you chose to eat it. If your husband is buying takeout and you're eating the takeout, it's your fault. If your wife does the grocery shopping and you're eating these things, then guess what? At the end of the day, it's your fault. If someone held an axe to your head and they were going to make you eat this thing. Otherwise, they were going to split your wig. You know what? If you came to me and you told me that, and you told me that that's why you ate the thing, do you know what I would tell you? I would tell you that it was your fault because you chose to eat the thing, regardless of who is making you do it or who is getting the groceries or who has the power over you in that way to decide what you're eating, right? Because again, it has to do with power. And you know, I realized the importance of food and how powerful food is and how it can be used as a means of control. You know, when I was in prison, I'll just say it. So I learned that food can be held over people as a means of manipulating them, controlling them. Don't let someone else have that power. You need to have that power. Take your power back. You're in charge of what goes in your face. And at the end of the day, it's your responsibility. So it's almost a convenient excuse to blame the people in our lives sometimes of why we can't make good food choices. But it's very empowering when we take it upon ourselves to say, hey, you know what? No, thank you. And a lot of times people offer food and it's just one of those things, you know, you go over to family's house. Does anybody have a parent, right, who kind of like forces food on them? Well, guess what? If you come to me and you tell me that, oh, my parent forced food on me and I didn't want to hurt their feelings, so I ate the food, and guess what I'm going to say? It's your fault. So guys, take your power back. Understand you're in charge of what you eat. And all those other sort of people, right? The who, it's like, who are we blaming? Who are we blaming this on, right? Who's maybe making it a little bit harder on us? Who's feeding us? And guys, you know what? At the end of the day, you have to learn how to cook, learn how to grocery shop, right? Maybe even do a meal service. Any meal services out there want to sponsor my channel? Hit me up because I would love to find a good one to recommend to people, because cooking isn't for everyone, but you need to be the one that's in charge of what you're eating. So find a way to get in charge of that, because who? You. It's you. Your responsibility. Next. What are you eating? And what I'm really talking about is like learning macronutrients. The invitation would be to learn about macros, carbohydrates, fats, proteins. Learn about how they affect your body. Everyone is a little bit different. So you could have one person that eats carrots, right? I eat 2 pounds of carrots every single day, and that's what I do, and I get jacked off that. And you could eat carrots. You could eat 2 pounds of carrots just like I do, and all your hair could fall out, and you, you know, you suffer all kinds of health problems, and you become obese from the carrots. Same, basically input, and different result based on the person. So the idea is bio-individuality. I really believe that, guys, that two people can do the exact same thing and get a different result, because one person's body responds to the carrots in a favorable way, and the other person's allergic to carrots, and the carrots kill them. So what you want to do is you want to be able to, you don't want to be out there, you know, flailing around blind, and you don't, I don't know, what is that? What are you eating, right? Macro wise. And you're like, I don't know, it's food. And just like, if you don't know what the macros are that you're taking in, then you have no way to be able to sort of measure, oh, well, when I eat this, then this happens, and this is how this affects me specifically. Because the idea is to learn that, and then over time, learn how to manipulate your macros. What you eat matters. A lot of guys will say, oh, a calorie is a calorie, and 10 calories of donuts affects you the same way that 10 calories of steak and broccoli affects you. And I say that is wrong, because at least it is for me, right? There's going to be those few guys out there that are freaks, and they can do that. And I've seen some of these guys, and it's incredible, but it's not me, and I don't think that it's most people. So the idea is, guys, just to educate yourself around the what behind food, macros. Learn about what stuff is, and then make educated decisions around what you're taking in based on what you feel is right for you. And we all respond a little bit differently, so you need to do some testing here. But again, don't just be out there willy-nilly, flailing around, floundering. It's almost like, watching someone struggle with their health journey is like watching someone who's drowning in a pool. They're they're flailing and they're wasting a lot of energy, and it's not working, but it's exhausting for them. And so the invitation is is to grab the hook. All right, I'm standing on the edge of the pool. I'm trying to give you the hook here. So let's talk about next. Next is when. So if you haven't been living under a rock, you may have heard of the fact that some people are having really good results from what's called intermittent fasting. And some people call that time-restricted eating. And it's basically just shrinking down the window in which we eat. And I've heard that there are some good things about this. One, the body is not constantly digesting. I've heard that it's not good for the body to always be digesting, and it can be good to give that system a break. But when, right? The question of when. There's times, depending on what your goals are, when maybe you need to focus on taking something in, right? Consuming something based on your goals at a specific time. There are certain what we call windows. And so like waking up is a window. And I like to sometimes consume like water with lemon upon waking. But maybe depending on your goals, maybe you want to consume some protein or something at that time. It's a very powerful what we call window. So when is important, when you're eating. Also pre-workout, right? Certain guys find that taking in certain things around those times can be helpful. Post-workout, right? And what about even before bed? I know a lot of guys who, when they're trying to build muscle and they're having a really hard time doing that by taking in some what's called slow digesting proteins, like a casein protein, before bed, sometimes guys that are trying to build muscle can get really good results from that just by focusing on the when around their eating. Other times, I've heard of guys that cut off their food intake at a certain time, early in the day, earlier than you might think. And I've tried it myself, and you know what I notice? It helps my sleep. I feel great the next day. I feel more refreshed. So everyone is a little bit different, but there's something to be said for when you're eating. It's a powerful question to ask yourself. Next, where? So there's a couple sabotage places for me specifically that I can think of around where when it comes to eating. And number one is in front of the television. Okay, I've never done like an actual study on this where like I weighed out or measured out exactly how much I ate, but I feel like I eat more when I'm in front of the television than when I'm sitting like at a table actually, just focusing on what I'm doing there, eating until I feel satisfied or full. Now, there's something about, I think, watching the television program that sort of, it removes you from paying attention to the meal in terms of engaging with your senses and really being mindful. And I think that makes it easier to eat more. And so there's also something, because I find it to be very pleasurable, right? I find it to be very pleasurable to sit and watch television and eat food. But there's something about that, right? Sometimes very sort of like high pleasure activities, it's easy to want to overconsume them. And so that's what I notice around watching television. Another dangerous one for me that I notice is driving. And again, I think it's just because my attention is on the road and I end up just like, I'll go through a bag. I'll go through anything you got. If I'm driving and I start eating, it's over. And I don't particularly like to drive. And it's something that, it's like a low grade sort of like irritation or pain for me. It's like a headache. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. And so I think what can happen is if I'm driving and stuffing my face with chips, I'm doing that as a painkiller. It's a to cope with the pain of driving. I'm sitting there and I'm stuffing my face, but really what I'm doing is I'm adding insult to injury. So I tell myself, really, in terms of like where, like, is eating in front of the TV great? I don't know. It's a sabotage for me. Driving, it can be a sabotage. When I'm at work, I don't eat. And I notice that there's a lot of very tempting, probably unsupportive options that are available at the office. And for me, it's too stressful. I'm under such stress. I'm in fight or flight. And when I'm in fight or flight, what I'll do is I won't eat, because again, I'm adding insult to injury in that case. I know my body isn't going to be able to digest, so it's just going to become problematic. I'm going to be wanting to, again, cope with those. I'm in pain because I'm at work. I'm uncomfortable. And it's like, so now I'm going to want to lean into some of those foods that are, it's the same as like, I may as well just smoke a cigarette or, drink a 6-pack or whatever. It's almost, I'm using food at a point like to try to like cope because I'm in pain. And so the invitation would be to not do that. I avoid those sort of traps at work. Also, takeout, restaurants. So a good thing about a restaurant is you only have so much food and you've paid for it. It's expensive, so it can make it easier to not overeat, right? Only so much comes out. There is what it is. And then it's like, so eating out at a restaurant with portioning, it can be good. But what happens is you lose a degree of control over what's going into that food. So whatever they're cooking with in the back, if it's not supportive of what you're trying to do, you may or may not even know about the fact that it's going into the food. And so you lose a degree of control. Restaurants, again, it can be good for portioning, but it's not good for control. And really, like I said, you want to take your power back. You really want to have control over what's going in. Fast food. Guys, fast food is very, I don't want to say addictive, but I will say that it's very loud. It's highly processed. There's a lot of sodium, a lot of sugar, a lot of fat. It's presented in such a way so as it's incredibly palatable, hyper palatable, and it makes you want more. It can really make it hard for you to stay the course. It's brown rice and lentils isn't really all that exciting after I've had some fast food. And so the idea would be to pay attention to that. If you're eating out at the fast food spot a lot, right, I don't know, that just doesn't work for me. Next, how are you eating? So there's many different sort of frameworks or diet strategies. Keto, paleo, Atkins. You can carb cycle, which I've made some videos about, and I'll talk more about it in the future. It's a great strategy for people who are aware of the power of manipulating macronutrients and people who like to eat carbs. Carb cycling is one. There's so many. You can calorie cycle. You can have cheat days. Another strategy that I think is really good. Vegetarian, pescatarian. You could be a vegan. I could go on and 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 on, and they're all effective. All of them, they're all effective. Everyone who sort of like adheres to like a strict sort of diet regimen, or they follow a plan, and they pretty much all work, because what's happening is the person is paying attention. That's the whole point of this video. This is a mindfulness exercise to try to not just be operating on that program that isn't working for you. And so when people stick with a way of doing things, no matter what it is, the broccoli diet. Yeah, I'm on the potato diet. I heard of this guy who did this crazy potato diet. It worked. The guy does the Subway diet. It works. It all works. It all works. You just have to do it. But, right, how you eat matters. And so, a couple really interesting things, aside from just like all of those diet sort of frameworks, right, that you could follow. They all work. So it's up to you. Find something that resonates with you. But just a couple things that came up for me that I found very interesting was there have been people that I've come across in my travels that eat with their hands. And so I talked to them about that because, like, I'm a germ freak, right? So for me, eating with my hands, I'm open to the idea, but I need to wash my hands first. I need to know I can't be walking around a party shaking hands, and I'm not going to feel comfortable eating with my hands at that point. But I have an open mind, and I'm very curious to try other people's ways. So I've tried this. And the people tell me like it brings out the flavor, and there's something about it where the digestion process just like begins early, or you're just like, before it gets to the mouth, you've already engaged with it with your senses in a way that like doesn't occur when you use a utensil. So whatever, but I tried it the other day with some ground turkey. And it was incredible. The ground turkey was not seasoned, and there was just something about it where I was like, wow, it tasted like the fat was like more rich, and I could even taste like, the saline solution and whatever, like the little salt that's in the turkey already. It was really nice. And I was just like, wow, and here's this thing that I was like, this is kind of woo stuff, kind of stupid. I wouldn't try this, because of germs or whatever. But the idea is to keep an open mind, right? Most people aren't stupid. That's not why they're failing on their body transformation journey. That's not it. Most people are not stupid. The information is on YouTube. You can look it up. But the reason that most people are not successful is because they're arrogant, and they think that they know, and they think that they're just gonna, I don't know, maybe they'll maybe they'll have a miracle, but they won't unless they implement a framework. How you eat matters. Pick one, right? And stick with it for long enough to see if it works for you. Next, why? Right? The why. What's the point of you doing this? Why are you putting yourself through this? What are your goals? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to build muscle? Right? If you're trying to build muscle, you're going to eat a certain kind of way. Are you trying to lose body fat? Right? So like, guys, before it goes in your mouth, you have to ask yourself that question. Is this thing that I'm about to eat, is it going to be supportive of my goals here? I'm not telling you to starve yourself. If you're trying to lose body fat, I would never tell someone to starve themselves. That's not what this is about, and you'll be unsuccessful if you do it that way. Maybe you lose body fat, but maybe you're not going to be so healthy. And the thing is that most people are starving because they don't understand that the majority of their energy should be coming from things like sunlight, fresh air, fresh, clean water, things they're depriving themselves of in their modern life, in the office. And so what we lean into, right, is food. And we lose sight of the fact that the majority of nutrition is off the plate, guys. And we're trying to self-medicate with food when maybe we should explore other things for that, right? Explore other things that nourish you, off the plate nutrition. And so when it comes to your why, you have to ask yourself some things, right? Like, why am I about to eat this right now? Am I eating to cope? Am I eating because I had such a hard day? Am I eating because I'm sad? Am I eating because I'm upset with what's going on in my relationship? Am I eating to try to fill a void? Guys, as someone who's tried to fill that void with food, please hear me when I tell you, you will never fill that void with food. In fact, it's very likely, if you're like me and you struggle with overeating, it's very likely you are blocking your blessings with food. So your why is going to be different based on who you are. I'd love to hear your why in the comments. If you would feel like you could share that with us, and if you feel like it would help someone else, which I feel like it really probably would, please share it in the comments. But your why is very important. And so you need to use that as fuel. Ask yourself these questions. Put it on easy mode, right? Instead of hard mode. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching the video. Peace.